The date is April 4th, 1993. The neon-drenched desert afternoon of Las Vegas is thrumming with an electric, almost Roman energy. Inside the grandiose open-air arena of Caesar's Palace, a crowd of nearly 17,000 people roars, their chants echoing off the colossal columns. This isn't just a wrestling event, it's a spectacle, a throwback to the gladiatorial contests of ancient Rome, but with a distinctly American flair. This is WrestleMania IX, billed as the world's largest toga party, and in the midst of this controlled chaos, a new kind of warrior is rising. His name is Tatanka. He moves with a quiet, focused intensity, a single red stripe bisecting his hair like a warpath. This is more than a gimmick, it's a declaration. He is Chris Chavis, but in the squared circle, he is a living embodiment of the Native American spirit. A noble warrior with an undefeated streak that stretches back over a year. He is pure, he is honorable, and he is a hero to a legion of fans who see in him a symbol of strength and righteousness. A year prior, he bested Rick Martel at WrestleMania VIII, a rivalry where Martel had brazenly stolen his sacred eagle feathers to adorn his own attire. Their feud culminated at Survivor Series, where he triumphed once more, reclaiming the feathers that had been taken from him. Tonight he faces the self-proclaimed Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, the reigning Intercontinental Champion, a man who represents everything Tatanka is not. Michaels is brash, arrogant and ruthless, a master of deception and a purveyor of boy-toy theatrics. This match is a clash of two worlds, the traditional, mythic hero against the modern, cynical villain. The match is a whirlwind of action. Tatanka, with his power and ferocity, dominates early, but Michaels, ever the opportunist, weathers the storm, resorting to underhanded tactics to gain the advantage. Tatanka performs his signature war dance, a stomping, rhythmic taunt that channels the spirit of the bison, sending waves of excitement through the crowd. The back and forth is breathtaking, a masterclass in professional wrestling storytelling. As the match reaches its climax, Michaels sends Tatanka to the outside and leaps after him, but Tatanka evades him. Unable to make it back before the 10 count, Michaels is disqualified. Tatanka wins, but it's by countout, a victory that feels both triumphant and hollow. The Intercontinental Championship doesn't change hands, yet even without the title, the message is clear. The undefeated warrior, the rising star, has defeated one of the company's top heels on the grandest stage of them all. His future, it seems, is boundless. He stands tall, a man of honor in a Roman-themed arena, a living legend in the making. And for a time he was. The trajectory of his career seemed to follow a classic heroic arc, a seemingly unstoppable force on a collision course with destiny. The World Wrestling Federation, under the calculated direction of Vince McMahon, had successfully cultivated a unique and compelling character. They had given him the space to shine, to connect with the audience on a visceral level. The undefeated streak was his shield, his symbol of invincibility. It lasted for over 2 years on television, an astonishing feat in an era where losses were a staple of a wrestler's journey. It was a testament to the company's belief in him. He was being built into a main event player without needing a title. Following his victory over Michaels, Tatanka would be locked in a bitter feud with the villainous Ludwig Borga, a Finnish strongman who represented everything antithetical to Tatanka's proud heritage. Borga, with his anti-American rhetoric and brutal in-ring style, became the perfect foil. On a fateful night in October 1993, Borga, with a strategic distraction by Mr. Fuji, finally ended Tatanka's televised winning streak. In the aftermath of the match, Federation champion Yokozuna launched a vicious assault, sidelining him for the next 3 months. It was a crushing, almost mythic defeat, a fall from grace that only made his eventual comeback that much more compelling. After the 3-month hiatus, Tatanka returned, a fire lit within him. His next major storyline would be even more complex. Tatanka found himself embroiled in a feud with Erwin R. Shyster, the Taxman, who hounded him over a ceremonial Lumbee headdress he had received. This storyline was a subtle, yet powerful contrast between the purity of Tatanka's character and the cold, bureaucratic nature of the corporate machine. The headdress, a sacred gift, was now a taxable asset in the eyes of the ruthless heel. It was a brilliant piece of character work, a narrative that spoke to the clash of cultures and values. Tatanka, as a hero, wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting to defend his heritage and his people's honor. But as with all tragic heroes, there came a turn, a moment of profound change that altered his course forever. By the summer of 1994, the seemingly unbreakable hero began to crack. His feud with Lex Luger led to a shocking heel turn at SummerSlam, a moment that stunned audiences. Tatanka, frustrated and suspicious, accused Luger of being a sellout to the $1 Million Man. But in the end, it was Tatanka who sold out. He joined the villainous $1 Million Corporation, a stable of wrestlers who had been corrupted by money and greed. The proud warrior had fallen. He had forsaken his heritage, his honor, and his people, seemingly for a fistful of cash. The contrast was painful, and it effectively neutered much of the character's mythic appeal. The undefeated, honorable warrior was gone, replaced by a greedy, bitter shell of his former self. This storyline, while it gave him a new direction, marked the beginning of the end for Tatanka's run as a top-tier star. Though he featured in a tag team match at the 1995 King of the Ring, teaming with Psycho Sid against Bam Bam Bigelow and Diesel, the mystique had vanished. He was now just another heel in a sea of villains. The tragic fall from grace was complete, yet his heel turn was not the most pivotal event, leading to his ultimate departure. That moment came 5 months after his King of the Ring match, in the summer of 1995. The atmosphere around the Federation was changing, a different kind of darkness settling in. Allegations of wrongdoing had been swirling, and the company was in damage control mode. In August of 1995, a bombshell dropped. Tatanka was named in a lawsuit filed by a woman in Anaheim, California, stemming from a purported incident following a company event in late 1994. The accusations were horrific: assault, drugging, and a disturbing ritual of shaving half of the woman's head. While the allegations were later proven to be false and another wrestler was ultimately implicated, the damage was done. In the unforgiving public eye, Tatanka was guilty by association. In a move that speaks volumes about the ruthless nature of the business, Vince McMahon took action. Tatanka was suspended, reportedly as a preemptive measure to distance the company from the scandal. This suspension, even in the absence of a conviction, cast a long shadow. The character, once a symbol of honor and integrity, was now tainted by association. It was a career-defining moment, a public trial by fire that, despite his innocence, left him as damaged goods in the eyes of management. Even after he was fully cleared and reinstated with full pay, the momentum, the trust, and the appeal were gone. He was no longer the undefeated hero, nor was he even a compelling villain. He was a liability, a name linked to a scandal and a character that had lost its narrative steam. He would return to the company, but it was clear that his star had faded. He competed in the 1996 Royal Rumble, but he was treated as just another wrestler, a far cry from the formidable presence he once was. His final televised match, a non-title bout against the Federation champion Bret Hart, was a faint echo of the promise he once held. 2 months after his return, he was gone from the company. The story, as it's often told, ends here. A great talent, a compelling character, sidelined and ultimately released. He was, as the wrestling lexicon calls it, buried. This narrative, however, is not without its dissenters. Those tireless digital combatants who revel in sparring with strangers over wrestling-related events that unfolded 3 decades ago. Undoubtedly, there will be comments from those watching this very video stating that this is false and that Vince didn't bury him, citing how Tatanka left on his own accord. And in a way, they are right. Tatanka himself, in candid interviews, has acknowledged this. He has stated that he left the company to focus on his marriage, to start a family, and to reconnect with his faith. This noble, honorable reason for his departure seems to align perfectly with the character he once was, a man who prioritized family and honor above all else. But the deeper truth lies in the subtext of his own words. In that very same interview, he also stated that the company wasn't doing anything with the Tatanka character at that time. This is the critical, often overlooked piece of the puzzle. While he may have left on amicable terms, and while he may have turned the situation into a personal positive, the catalyst for his departure was ultimately a professional one. He wasn't being utilized. His character, once a top priority, had been de-emphasized to the point of irrelevance. The once bright future that shone so brightly at WrestleMania IX had dimmed. The lawsuit and his subsequent suspension, even though he was innocent, had irrevocably changed Vince McMahon's perspective. In a cutthroat business where perception is everything, Tatanka had become a risk, a name that could bring unwanted scrutiny. McMahon, ever the shrewd businessman, chose to pivot. He no longer saw Tatanka as a rising star, but as a ghost of a scandal that had nearly tarnished his company. The tragic irony is that Tatanka's character was built on purity and honor, yet it was a baseless smear that ultimately led to his professional undoing in the company. He was a warrior, but he couldn't fight against a shadow. He was cleared, but the stain lingered. He was brought back, but he was no longer a priority. His departure was not an act of defiance, but a pragmatic decision born of a lack of professional opportunity. He saw the writing on the wall. The Federation was moving on, and so was he. His time as a prominent player had ended not in a blaze of glory, but in a quiet de-emphasis, a gradual sidelining that made his continued presence in the company unsustainable. The tragic hero had lost his narrative arc. He was no longer on a quest for honor, but adrift in a sea of forgotten characters. The warrior's journey continued, but it was a different kind of odyssey, one that took him through countless independent promotions and foreign countries, collecting minor victories that could never restore what was lost. When the company welcomed him back years later, it was not as the undefeated hero of old, but as a nostalgic artifact, a reminder of a more innocent time when a Native American warrior could captivate the world. In the end, the story of Tatanka is a cautionary tale about the unforgiving nature of professional wrestling and the brutal logic of a singular visionary like Vince McMahon. The mythic warrior, with his powerful undefeated streak and his noble heritage, was a beautiful creation. He captivated audiences and inspired a generation. But the machine that built him was also capable of burying him, not with a single decisive loss, but with a slow, grinding process of irrelevance. He left on his own terms, yes, but it was Vince McMahon who first pushed him toward the exit. The warrior walked away not from a fight he lost, but from one he was no longer being allowed to win. And in the silent spaces between the headlines and the official stories, that is the true tragic narrative of a man named Tatanka.